Full moon in Aquarius forecast. We're going to have the full moon on August 22nd. You see, this full moon will happen in the sign of Aquarius, of course, the sidereal sign of Aquarius. In Vedic astrology, the zodiac starts here with Ashwini and Aries, and then by the time you get around to here, you have Aquarius and the nakshatra of Dhanishta. The full moon is happening at about 5 degrees 26 seconds of sidereal Aquarius using the Lahiri Ayanamsha. And so this nakshatra of Dhanishta is halfway between Capricorn and Aquarius. So this full moon is going to be happening at that point where where Capricorn and Aquarius are just sort of transitioning. Now, these are both Saturn-ruled signs, so there's a lot of Saturn energy here squaring off and opposite these planets in Leo. We have Sun, Mars, and Mercury in Leo right now. I'm recording this on the 19th, like 3 days before. And so as we go, and you see if you watch the Tithis here, the Tithi right now it's now Guruvar, and it's, where's the Tithi? Oh yeah, Triadashi, right, which is the 13th, 14th, 15th, will be on Saturday the 22nd, or is that early in the morning on Sunday, the 22nd? That's right. So that's San Diego time. So again, we have Sun, Mars, and Mercury in Leo right now. So this is where you have all this energy and this power around things like governments, even things like military, government, centralized power. So we've seen the big news of the world the last few days is the withdrawal from the U.S. out of Afghanistan after 20 years. And you've seen this like kind of humbling of a central government, of the U.S. government, and what seemed to be so much power, you see, and another regime has now seized that power, right? They're now in power in this country that the United States occupied for 20 years. They have all of the weapons. They have all of that power now, and who was once the king has now been humbled. This is a big lesson, and this is a big power struggle with the Leo-Aquarius opposition. I just did a full course on shadows, blind spots, projections, and a big part of it was oppositions. And a big opposition in the Leo-Aquarius dynamic is this kingdom sense of the king and the centralized power, and then opposite that is all of the citizens in the kingdom, the citizens in the country, and so and also which humbles the king, which waters down the power of the kingdom and the king. So we see this dynamic playing out now in a big way, and of course, part of it is because Saturn is in Capricorn in his own sign, so Saturn is really powerful to be humbling all kinds of power figures. So what this also can show in your life is the time for you to be humble and for you to be humbled and not so jacked up on your big bad self, right? So you're probably seeing how in many ways in your life you're feeling humbled. You're feeling more realistic about your power. But it's also a time of feeling empowered and empowerment in general. Again, for the Taliban, it's a time of power. So you can't always just look at it from your point of view. Your lack of power can be someone else's gain of power. So this is the kind of power struggle that happens in the Leo-Aquarius dynamic. So again, we see that socially, but also personally, you can see this in your life with your big, bad, powerful self in relation to others, like relationship partners, and especially how relationships have a more universal nature. Things that aren't just about your own personal needs and desires in a relationship can be very beneficial right now. It can be a time when you can really learn and grow in those ways, where instead of just seeing everything as your personal experience and the pleasure you can get with another person, or the power even that you get. You can see everything in your life now, including relationships, as something that's more universal and cultural and transcendent, right? And I bring in the transcendent part also because the moon is going to be joined Jupiter. So Jupiter is really that planet of transcendence in Vedic astrology. The Graha, one of the, because it's about the mystic and metaphysics and big teachings and big philosophies that can take anything and make it transcendent. So it's like this transcendent heart, body, mind, heart, nature that expands and transcends beyond just your personal experience of it. Jupiter is called Guru, and Guru has a meaning. It means things that allow us to remove the darkness and bring in the light. Teachings that are heavy, that take you down to the depths of the truth, not just some surface version of the truth. For instance, we can say there's the truth is that, America looks weak leaving Afghanistan this way, okay? The deeper truth is maybe we should have never went there in the first place, okay? A deeper truth from that is we went there to try to catch Osama bin Laden, okay? A deeper truth to that is we actually went there to make weapons manufacturers rich, okay? Now we're getting to a deeper truth, a truth that's weightier, that has more weight than just the surface. Again, I'm talking about these things on a social level because one of the things that we're all looking for right now is we're looking for deeper truths than just, for example, on the news. If we're talking, let's use this Afghanistan thing as an example. All of the rhetoric starts on the surface about how bad America looks. Can people trust America again? Blah blah blah. Very rarely do you get into the idea of we should have never been there in the first place. And what were we doing there? Well, the deeper truth is we weren't really there to, protect Afghanistan women from the oppression of the Taliban. No, we were there to occupy the country, take the mineral resources, make weapons to sell them. Halliburton and Raytheon and, all the weapons manufacturers love it. That's the deeper truth. That's always the deeper truth behind all of this. So again, you don't hear that on the news. This is the kind of truth that, for example, even with that issue. But then you could go deeper than that, because the deeper truth, even deeper than that, is, sadly, that's the nature of the world. That's the nature of the world. And we need to do our best as spiritual beings, first of all, to do better for the world, but you as an individual on a spiritual quest, can do your part and speak these truths like I'm doing, but at the end of the day, I have to be responsible, and I'm responsible for my transcendent soul nature, for my salvation within this matrix of the world, of these kinds of terrible scenarios. We have to find the beauty and find something beautiful and the real truth that's deeper even than all of that. Because we can just get hung up on all of that. And again, we see a lot of this in the world now. We can take the same thing with, of course, the big issue, COVID and masks and vaccinations, and now it's vaccine passports, and we can go on the surface, or we can just keep going deeper and deeper into the issue, right? You have the right not to get it, but other people have the right to be protected from what we know to be a virus. And you have the right to not make your kid wear it. Other people have the right to have their kid be safe. Again, so these are complicated issues. Underneath it all, we're all still spiritual beings, and this is the nature of the world. And if we lose ourselves in all of that as well, we're really losing the connection to the deepest truth. So Guru and Jupiter goes all the way. It's not just this level of truth. There are layers and levels and depths of truth. So these are big things right now. And particularly as they run along the Leo-Aquarius axis, this is how we're really cognizing our world now and seeing our experiences. And, I was just thinking about it. I just played tennis earlier today, and when I was riding back, I was listening to some music that I really liked it was from the late 90s. It's actually, the CDs are called Buddha Bar, the Buddha Bar CDs. They're really nice, and ambient kind of, really fun and really well done. It's from a place in Paris called the Buddha Bar. I've been there. You go in there and there's a big Buddha sitting there. Used to be. I haven't been there in a long time. I haven't been to Paris in 20 years. But all these, I remember when I got that CD, when I got those CDs, and I listened to that music, and it was right as I was transitioning into this part of my life, 22 years ago. And I remember how filled with hope I was, how hopeful that music was. There was a few other CDs that I got at that time, and how filled with hope I was at what the world, what was coming. This was before the 2000 election and Afghanistan and 9/11, and now we're here in this world now. And I really felt a sadness. And I feel a genuine sadness these days, because this isn't, especially decades ago, those of us who, maybe are in our 40s or 50s or whatever, this isn't what we thought was going to happen by the time we reached this era. By the time we reached, let's say, 2020 something. We thought it was going to look different, I remember when the space shuttle took off. I was a senior in high school when the first space shuttle took off. There was a standard back then. That was 1980, 81. 40 years later, I would have thought 40 years from that moment, we would have been doing so much. We've barely done anything now, because culturally and socially, what's happened is all of the money and all of the resources and all of our collective efforts have gone to double, triple, and quadruple down on the 1% of 1% of 1% now. And so there's a lot of disappointment that's being processed right now. I even remember the 2008 election, even when Obama was elected. Whether people liked him or not, at least it represented something that looked hopeful, that we were coming together, that things were moving in a direction. And now we look at where we're at now, and it's sad and disappointing. Not like I ever had big delusions or illusions that the world was going to be, that it was perfect. There's always going to be tragedy, pain, sadness, but we thought that that the arc of history was maybe going toward a more hopeful trajectory. Right now, it's hard to see that. I don't really know where it's going. Obviously, none of us do. I have a lot of hope that the younger generation that's coming up behind me are much more, they're going to have solutions that we can't see yet, but it's okay to recognize this. And it's hard to sometimes stay vigilant or present with what's going on because of this disappointment that we're really seeing now. In the last couple of years has really shown it. Again, this Saturn in Capricorn has really shattered illusions since last year. I'm talking about these things now because we see this sort of opposition between, again, this Sun, Mars, Mercury, and Leo, which is all of that centralized personal power, and this Moon, Jupiter in Aquarius, which is trying to bring the promise of hope toward the future that we're going to share together in some way. My favorite band, Rush, had a song, I think it was from 2000, a couple albums before they broke up. Far Cry was the song, and the basic refrain was, "It's a far cry from the world we thought we'd inherit." Like that was written like 2010, 2011. It's a far cry from the world we thought we'd inherit, right? Like, this ain't what we thought was going to come if you go back 20 or 30 years ago, right? So it's a tough blow, like every day, as things seem to get and do get more and more polarized around things that are less and less inclusive, aware. And for those who are wanting the world to be like that, it's painful, it's disappointing, and it's a far cry from the world we thought we'd inherit. And, I'm talking about that because a lot of this revolves around the power structures we have in place, governments, and also personal ecosystems within our communities. This includes things like boards of education, all the local power structures as well, which is Leo, Sun, Mars, Mercury, in opposition to, again, Moon, Jupiter over here in Aquarius, which is how these structures are set up to serve the needs of the people, and how these things are really contentious now. And this is why we're seeing so much of this now. And I think this full moon is going to bring a lot of reflection, and it's going to be more of a flashpoint and more of a polarizing moment where tolerance for intolerant personal expressions are going to start to be pushed back against. And again, this is why I think we're seeing more and more of this now, even around the world. Again, we see a lot of it, of course, revolving around COVID and all, wherever it's going from now with Delta variant and all this other stuff. So, but again, that's one level, that's the worldly level. But on the deeper level, there's still your personal spiritual connection that is a part of this. And even though you maybe have been living your life realizing that you're in the world but not of the world, you're experiencing the pain and disappointment and sadness of what you'd hoped or thought would be possible in relation to what we're seeing. On a personal level, it's painful to see how many friends and people who I thought were close with me, how things have changed over the last year, especially because of all of the polarizing attitudes. Everybody's now so backed into a corner, especially, about the big questions of masks and freedom and all vaccinations and all this. It's like it's sad to see everybody where friendships have gotten fractured with people that I could be close with, I am close with, but it seems like, they've, put me into a category now and boxed me out because I'm whatever. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what but just the coldness and the disregard and the tuning out. And, we all get a little tired of it at some point, especially a few months ago. I can't keep open and sensitive to people who want to be insensitive or block me out or whatever because they think I'm thinking something, I don't know, whatever it might be. Everyone's patience isn't unlimited, so how relationships have changed, especially in the last year and a half, is also quite sad. But this is where we're at, So I think it's an opportunity, or it's time to be processing these things. And if you are processing these things, I think that's natural. I think that's a big part of what's going on right now. Also because Venus has gone into Virgo right now, and we're also feeling that, and noticing maybe what's been lost recently. And hopefully maybe we can find some opportunities to reach out to people, or, others, can take those steps, or you can take those steps if you feel they're important, or they're, that it's prudent to do so. So we also have this now, there's a big Dhanishta Nakshatra emphasis here. Dhanishta is ruled by the 8 Vasus. And the 8 Vasus have a deep relationship to Lord Shiva. The Dhanishta, one of the best symbols of that nakshatra is this. Dancing Shiva is one of the best because it's Shiva, and his symbol is the damaru, or the drum of creation. That's the symbol of that nakshatra. And Shiva in that Nataraj form is dancing, creation, and destruction. Birth and death are simultaneous flow, right? And it's like a dance. The Tandava is dancing into creation and out of creation, worlds and yugas and experiences. Again, it can be as big as like yugas, which are, hundreds of millions of years, or it can be as small as the type of thing I just said, where relationships change and you have to change with it and be like, okay, I'm still open to love with this person or this situation, but I can't be complicit in whatever is coming my way, or I don't know, whatever it might be. the subtle dance of birth and death is ongoing. And, even the death of innocence between people where you thought there was an innocent love and flow and that dies. That's a sad thing. It doesn't have to be forever. Maybe part of it dies. Perhaps the naivete dies, but then you can go into the next level and process that and come through it even stronger. Again, this is what good relationships that are time tested and battle tested and true spiritual brotherhoods and friendships endure. They can endure disappointments and struggles at times. If they can endure that, then they were real. If not, then they were just based on mutual benefit. But, maybe there's hope for those kinds of things to be repaired now. And so, again, this birth and death of Shiva as being symbolized by that Nataraj is very important. And the raw elements are important here because they're the 8 Vasus. And the 8 Vasus can be explained in many different ways. In certain Vedas and in certain texts, you see they're recognized as, or they're identified as like the sun, the moon, stars, the wind, and things like that. But they also can be codified into 3 gunas and 5 elements. That's also 8 components. And with 3 gunas and 5 elements, you have kind of the building blocks of everything. Because the 3 gunas are like body, mind, and spirit, different levels of consciousness, different motivations. And then you can take the elements, like, for example, you can take earth. The earth element with the tamasic motivation is to gather and hold and make things stable. With the rajasic motivation, which is more emotional, is to stabilize like communication and relationship with people. That's earth in a rajasic way. Earth in a sattvic way is to build structures, let's say, that everyone enjoys and have a larger vision of the earth and what's stable, just stability. Even like the stable body as a platform for consciousness and meditation can be like sattvic earth. So you can take 5 elements and 3 gunas and have the foundation for every human motivation. And by the way, you need to do this if you're going to do astrology correctly. This is the basis of Sankhya philosophy, which, by the way, I'm going to be teaching these principles at the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference coming up in November. I'm going to be teaching, those are the principles, the building blocks from this book, Yoga and Vedic Astrology. You can see this copy has the Art of Living logo on top because Art of Living, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, this is their version of the book. They published this book and has distribution in India because of how it describes these Indian concepts. So this is the basis of Sankhya philosophy. Every planet, sign, house, and astrological indicator must link back up with these universal principles that also govern are in Ayurveda and yoga. When it becomes that, then the Vedic astrology itself becomes a platform to not just figure things out and get what you want. It becomes a platform for self-discovery, self-awareness, spiritual liberation, and all of that. So these things are very powerful in this nakshatra. This nakshatra of Dhanishta is really foundational to that core motivation of the alchemy of this dance of creation, and particularly as it exists now within this construct of opposition. I think and I hope and I pray for all of us that we can be more creative, be more conscious, be more dharmic in our associations with each other. Stop dehumanizing each other. Stop pathologizing each other. Stop calling everybody who disagrees with you, psychotic, fanatic, brainwashed. I've been guilty of it, absolutely, and I've been refraining from these kinds of commentary because it hasn't been helpful when I've said those things. My frustration has boiled over before, which is not good. And so, but again, we do our best, and then we hopefully do better, right? And you can do better. We can all do better. And this hopefully a sort of humane dance of creation around this Leo-Aquarius, opposition and polarity can bring us together. And especially since this full moon has joined Jupiter, very powerful, bright Jupiter in the sky. Look up in the sky right now, Guru, Jupiter is really bright. So planets are retrograde, they're closer to the Earth, and they're really bright. So in particular, as we move up to this full moon on August 22nd, this full moon in Aquarius, look for the moon to get close to that bright Jupiter in the sky, and allow that light of Guru, that light of deeper wisdom, to illuminate that compassion and devotion in your heart, and really put into practice the teachings that you are following, and introspect about those teachings. This is one of the biggest problems in the world right now, as far as I'm concerned, is that we don't have good teachings. We don't have good teachers. Discrimination is at an all-time low, at least as far as I've seen it. And great teachings and great gurus and their words are not always easy. They're challenging because they challenge us to introspect and to put into practice the teachings, not just talk about them. And so whoever your teachers are and your gurus are, put their teachings into practice, and you'll see that unless the teaching revolves around love and compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, that it's some kind of false teaching that's based more on the glory of the teacher and the teacher's ego and the teacher's sense of righteousness, rather than on you, the person who is having to live your life as a spiritual being trying to navigate this. No great teacher would say, be fired up and angry, get angry at everybody. Because these people are, no real teacher, no teacher of gravitas would say that. And this is one of the biggest qualities of Jupiter, of Guru, is that gravitas, to take you to the depth of profound wisdom. Not just details on the surface, but profound wisdom. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you to hear, and I hope you have a good full moon, and you go ahead and like and share this as you can to support me and the channel and these